Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Benji Bruce, and on this episode, we are going to talk about how everyone underestimates what it takes to succeed. I mean, every single person. It's ridiculous. I've done this. I'm sure you've done it. Every person that I've talked to has underestimated what it takes to succeed. And I remember I was talking with this guy, and he bought an island, right? So he bought an island, and he was going to renovate the whole thing. Well, not was he did renovate the whole thing, but he thought it was only going to cost about $300,000 to do all the changes that he wanted to do. This was his first time buying an island. I mean, it's not every day you go buy an island, so it was his first time buying an island. It was his first time renovating the thing and doing all the sorts of fixes that he wanted to do. And so he thought he was only going to spend $300,000 on the whole renovations, but he found out he spent $50,000 on a generator, $150,000 just on the concrete, then another $100,000 on landscaping, and it just kept going on and on and on. And after all the renovations that he completed, it cost him like a few million actually. And I mean, he completely underestimated what it took to actually complete his job, his renovations with the island. And this happens all the time with every single person, right? I remember like when I started and I was trying to contact events and I was trying to build up my entertainment business, trying to build up my speaking business. I thought I only needed to contact like 100 people or maybe a couple hundred people max to actually get a gig. And I was way off, like ridiculously way off, right? I sent tons of emails. Well, it felt like I was sitting down all day, every day. Well, not felt like I was actually sitting down all day, every day, and I was just sending out emails, and nobody was freaking booking me. It was freaking dumb, right? I'm sitting there, I'm calling, I'm emailing, but eventually someone did book me, and when they did book me, I was excited. I was like, yes, I'm the man. But still, it took me way longer than I thought it would. I had no idea how long it was actually going to take. And this happens with everything we do. And I try to warn people. So whenever someone like buys one of my programs and I'm training them in prospecting and how to do like cold emailing, I try to warn them in terms of what's going to happen mentally. I've seen this happen with everyone in every industry, especially when you're doing sales, where what happens is you get demotivated because your expectations don't match the reality. And so here's what happens to you mentally. This happened to me. It happens to everybody I've talked to, right? This is what happens. First, you get excited. I mean, you have this new opportunity. You sit down, you're like, oh, I'm going to start doing this thing. I'm going to start going door to door. I'm going to start cold calling. I'm going to start cold email. I'm going to start doing this thing, whatever it is, right? So you get excited. You hear about this new opportunity. You're excited. You're like, yes, let's go. Let's get it. And you start doing some work. So you do a little bit of work for a day or 2 days, maybe a week or something. You're all excited. You're like, yes, let's go. Let's get it. And you start doing it. You start cold emailing. You start going door to door. You start cold calling, whatever it is, right? You're excited, you're doing it for a week or two, but you don't see immediate results. So you're going door to door, you're cold emailing, you're cold calling, you're doing this thing, you're prospecting, whatever, but you don't see immediate results. And so you say like, huh, and you start to rethink and you start to replan because you're thinking like, maybe I'm doing something wrong here. That I don't know. I mean, I was emailing, but people aren't responding. Nobody's really hiring me. Nobody wants. What in the world? What am I doing wrong? So you like start to pause and you start to rethink. You start to plan, and then you start to come up with an excuse. You start saying, you know what? It's not about quantity, it's about quality. And when you say that, that's an excuse for you to start backing up. You start taking your foot off the pedal. So you say, you know what? It's not about quantity, it's about quality. So you start, instead of doing 100 a day, now you're doing like 50 a day or even just 20 a day. And so you start to slow down. But because you slow down, it's now going to take you even longer to get the results. So now you're really screwed. I mean, you slow down. Instead of contacting 100 people a day, you now start contacting 20 a day. So now it just makes it worse, right? You start slowing down. Then you plan more. So you were excited. You got all excited. You start doing it. You started stepping back. You started rethinking and planning. You're like, oh, you know what? It's not about quality. It's about quantity. Now you start to plan more. You're like, you know what? I need to just plan it out better. That's what it is. I just need to plan it out better. And then you wonder why you're not getting results. You step back, you wonder why it's not working. You get demotivated. And at this point, you're really getting demotivated, right? And you start blaming the gurus, the person who told you, hey, you need to do prospecting. Hey, you need to do door to door. Hey, you need to do this. You need to do Facebook ads or whatever. Because you weren't seeing the results, you start blaming the guru. You're like, hey, man, what was this person saying? This person's dumb. It's not working, right? So you start blaming the guru. Then you go and you search for another method. You're like, oh, you know what? There's got to be a different way. And so you just stop doing it altogether, and then you just go and you try to search for another method. This happens all the time. It happened to me. It happened to pretty much everybody, right? And it's something that you really have to be aware of, because people are constantly underestimating what it takes. And I warned this with a real estate agent, right? So the real estate agent, this person was going door to door, and at first they were doing it. They got excited because this other realtor told them, "Hey, here's how I'm getting all my clients and all my buyers and stuff." So this new realtor, they got all excited. They start going door to door, but then they started getting demotivated because nobody was really saying, "Yes, I want to hire you as a realtor. I want to work with you as a realtor." And so they started like backing up. They say, "You know what? I just need a better plan." And they start backing up and they got demotivated. This happens all the time just because we keep underestimating what it actually takes to actually accomplish the thing we want to accomplish. Even like here, I'm in a high rise, right? So I moved into a high rise, and maybe if you're watching the video, you can see it in the video. But basically, I moved into the high rise, and I actually have, it's called a ring light. So it's this light that's just a ring, and it looks really cool, and it worked in most of my videos. So I used to record, well, not used to, I record a lot of videos, but I used to only use the ring light in like a black background, and it looked really great. I was like, man, not only do I look good, the background looks good, and so it looked really great, right? But when I moved into the high rise, I thought that I could just use this one ring light and that's it. I would have a nice high rise background, and I'm good to go with this one ring light. I sat down, I clicked record, and then I was just backlit. So I was like all black, and whoops, I just hit the mic. I was like all black, and there's light behind me, but there's no light on me. Even though I had this ring light shining directly on me, the ring light did nothing because the sun was behind me. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this sucks. And so I completely underestimated it. And I had to go and I had to buy new equipment. I bought like $10,000 worth of new equipment. I bought a new camera. I bought new lights, like several different lights. And I finally got it all worked out, right? But I bought tons and tons of new equipment just because I completely underestimated what it took just to freaking record in the high rise, right? This happens all the time. Why do we underestimate? Like, why is it that we tend to say, you know what, all I got to do is this. All I got to do is just get on TV once and I'm good to go. Why do we just keep underestimating every single time? The reason is because you've never done it before. So whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whatever it is you got excited about that you're about to do, you've never done it before, so you don't know what to expect. So in the beginning, when I was trying to do prospecting, I was trying to contact events to get hired as an entertainer. I'm trying to just get hired just nonstop. I'm like, man, let me just call these people. Let me email, let me do whatever it takes. And I'm sitting there doing it. And then I was getting demotivated. I was like, what the heck? Nobody's interested. What the heck? This is stupid. I contacted like 300 people and no one hired me yet. Well, the reason we get demotivated is because we don't expect it. We've never done it before. So you don't know how many people you need to contact, or you don't know how many you don't really know what to do just because you've never done it before. So what happens is you see the end result in your head, but you don't see the reality it takes to get there. And because you don't see the reality it takes to get there, you now get demotivated as you start going through the reality, because you dreamed it up in your head. You saw the end result, but you didn't see the reality. And so as you start taking the steps and reality is hitting you from all different perspectives, you're like, what the heck? This is stupid. And so you just naturally get demotivated. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people talk about experience. They keep saying like you want to go have a mentor, go talk with someone who's done it before, because what this mentor does, what the person does with experience is they warn you of the reality. They say like, look, here's where you are. And I understand that you want to get to this point. I understand that you want to accomplish this thing, but here's what's going to happen along the way. And so this mentor is willing to tell you, he can actually say like, here, You think that you only need to contact 100 people, but you need to contact about 10,000 people. And so this mentor is the one who has experience. He's the one who can basically see into the future just because he's seen the past. When you've seen the past, when you've gone through this thing, you see all the steps that it takes to get the end result. And when you see those steps, when you've gone through those steps, you now know what to expect. But people who haven't gone through those steps, they don't know what to expect. So they end up saying, "Oh, I'm going to accomplish this huge dream of mine. I'm going to do this big thing." But they haven't gone through the steps. So when they do go through the steps, they just get demotivated because they're just not used to it, right? And so that's really why a lot of people say, get the mentor, get the mentor. That's really why we tend to underestimate a lot of different things. I mean, I've done this with pretty much everything. Every new thing that I've started, I've completely underestimated. No matter how like successful I become at accomplishing what I did accomplish, whenever I start something new, I always underestimate it. Even though I think I'm not underestimating it, even though I'm like, oh, you know what? I know that I normally underestimate, so this time I'm going to double it. This time I'm going to triple what I need to do. And I still completely underestimate what I need to do, right? I've done this when I built the online business, right? So I was building the online business, and I remember, like, I could have sworn I watched like a guru, like a very well-known guy, a millionaire, multi-millionaire in the industry. He said something like, if you have 10,000 people on your email list, you'll be able to easily generate $1 million. And I was like, okay, cool. 10,000, that's my goal, $10,000. I mean, 10,000 emails, and I should be able to generate $1 million just really easily. Just a product launch, and bam, I'm an instant millionaire. Nope, wasn't even close. I mean, I hit 10,000 people on my email. I was like, where's my million? What the heck, right? And not only that, it was actually really hard for me to get the 10,000 people on my email list to begin with. I thought all you got to do is you create an ad, you send emails, you sell a product. That's it. I was like, you know what? Just create a Facebook ad. You just send some emails. You write a couple of emails. You say, hey, buy my stuff. People are going to buy, right? So that's kind of what was going on in my head. But I say, you know what? It's going to probably be a little bit harder than that. Man, it was way harder than that. It was ridiculously harder than that. Even something as simple as like creating an ad. I sat down to create an ad. It didn't work. I was like, okay, let me sit down and create another ad. It didn't work, right? And so this just keeps happening over and over and over. You just keep underestimating. I underestimated with prospecting. I underestimated with the online business. I underestimated it with the freaking high rise that I moved into when I had the ring light. I underestimated every aspect of it. What you need to do is you need to build your endurance muscle. So you just need to essentially build muscle that's going to allow you to keep going, to keep pushing no matter what. So the only reason that I kept going, even though everyone kept telling me no when I was, or they just ignored me, they would either say no or just ignored me when I was sending out emails to get hired as an entertainer. The only reason I kept going was because I had to. I didn't have another job to fall back onto. And so I think I think the reason why most people fail is just because they have something else to fall back onto if it doesn't work. And so that's why they don't go all in. That's why they don't keep going. So when inside of your mind, you think, I only need to contact 100 people before I get a client, before I get business or something. If that's going on inside of your mind, if that's the expectation, but the reality is 10,000 people, what's going to happen is once you hit 100, you'll start to say like, I haven't gotten a client yet. What's going on? Maybe you keep going. Maybe you say 150. Maybe you keep going. You go to 200. But still, remember, the real number is 10,000, right? So you hit 200. You're like, what the heck? This isn't working. Maybe you keep going to 250. Maybe you keep going to 300. But once again, there's no results. So what happens is because you have something to fall back onto, because you have a job or something else to fall back onto, you now say, you know what? This thing is not really working. I don't know what it's just not working. And so you end up just slowing down or you just stop altogether and you fall back onto the thing, the job or the other thing that you can fall back onto. I didn't have anything to fall back onto because it was the only thing that I was doing to make money, right? So what happens is when you try so much and so much doesn't work, you become numb to failure. Like so many different things don't work. You just become numb to it. You're like, you know what? Didn't surprise me. Like, I thought I needed to only contact 100 people, and so far I'm on 2,000 and it hasn't worked. It didn't surprise me. And you just keep going anyways. You're like, oh, doesn't surprise me. Oh, well. And so that's essentially what you want to do is you want to build your endurance muscle to a point where you essentially become numb to failure. And I really think that in the beginning, I think performing in restaurants, like me doing illusions and mind reading tricks in restaurants, I think that really helped me because in order for me to get a restaurant gig, what I had to do is I had to go, I would ride the bus because at the time, I mean, I didn't have a car. I was like 15 years old, right? So at the time, I would ride the bus. I would go to a restaurant and I would ask to speak to the GM. I would ask to speak to the general manager. I knew that I couldn't talk to the regular manager because the regular manager, he would just say, oh, I got to talk with the GM to the general manager. So I would say like, hey, I need to talk with the GM. And so if the GM would come out, if they were there and then I could talk to them, I would now do my little pitch. I'm like, oh, I can perform table to table and everyone's going to love it. And I would do my little pitch, right? And so many of them said no. They're like, no, sorry, we can't pay you. No, we're just not interested, right? I think what happened is so many said no, I just became numb to it. I was like, no, oh well. And then after that, when I started switching and getting into corporate, what happened was I mean, this like crushed me at the time. What happened was this was like my first big time corporate gig where I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get paid a lot of money for this corporate gig. Yeah, what, son? And I lost the gig to someone else because they charged like half the price or not even have like 4 times less than what I was charging. And I lost the gig and it crushed me. I was like, man, what the heck? And so I mean, it was like right there, like sign on the dotted line, and then bam, I just lost the gig. And I was like, oh, this is stupid. And it happened several times where I lost the gig. GM said no, like as I would go to him and pitch him and everything. I mean, stuff like that kept happening. So I became numb to it. And this happened with everything that I've done. I mean, like product launches that I've done where I tried to do like an online product launch. It failed, prospecting failed, all that stuff. So what happens is you're building your endurance muscle. With every failure, you're building this endurance muscle. And that's one of the reasons why people keep talking about you got to like get used to failure and all that stuff, seek out failure and all that. I don't think you should seek out failure. That's dumb. I would never seek out failure. I think you got to be an idiot to seek out failure. You should always seek out success. But when you fail, and it's inevitable, you will fail. When you fail, you just ignore it. You're like, well, on to the next one. And that's just going to happen over time. You're just building up your muscle in terms of the failure endurance muscle. You have to understand that just because something didn't work doesn't mean it doesn't work. And that really has to go on inside of your head. Just because something didn't work doesn't mean it doesn't work. The only thing that happened is that you didn't get it to work. That's the only thing that happened. So I knew that when I was emailing people, like when I would cold email people to get hired for events and they didn't hire me, I knew that cold emailing works. I just couldn't get it to work. I needed to change what I was saying. I needed to change who I was emailing. I needed to change. And so this happens all the time. I see this with all sorts of people where they say, I'm going to do this type of marketing. I'm going to do this thing, right? They start doing it. It doesn't work. And then they say, you know what? That guru's dumb. That guru, that expert, oh man, he's dumb. He told me it was going to work and it doesn't work. I'm going to now go to somebody else. And so I see it happen all the time. But in reality, more often than not, it works. You just couldn't get it to work for you. And so you have to understand, you have to like be really self-aware about why it's not working and really sit down and think about why is this thing not working. And first thing you think is, am I doing the right things? So that's the first thing you think is what I'm doing the right thing? So is cold emailing the right thing? Is Facebook ads, is that the right thing? Or whatever it is, you got to think, is this the right thing? And then if the answer is yes, now you sit there and you say, okay, now how do I do this thing right? So you say, is this the right thing? Now, how do I do this thing right? That's what's going on inside of your head. And so when you do that, you start to build your endurance muscle. You start to understand how reality works and how you combine your dreams with reality. So it's very practical and you actually accomplish this thing. But most people fail because they don't know what it takes to succeed. So if you're feeling demotivated, you have to keep pushing. No matter what it is, I mean, we keep underestimating what it takes to succeed. So if you feel demotivated, keep pushing. If it's the right thing, if you know this is the right thing, keep pushing. Figure out what you're doing wrong, but keep pushing, keep moving forward. I like this quote by Steve Jobs, where Steve Jobs, he said, people say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true. And the reason it's true, and the reason is because it's too hard. Let me back that up. I just jacked up the whole quote. So here's what Steve Jobs said. So Steve Jobs said, people say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true. And the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. I thought that was great. He was like, look, you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, because if you don't, any reasonable person would give up. And I mean, it's a great quote, because there's nothing wrong with you if you give up. If something's not working and you give up, there's nothing wrong with you. That's actually normal. I mean, if it's not working, you're like, shoot, what the heck? This is too hard, right? And so you just give up. There's nothing, I mean, that's just normal. But if you want to succeed, you have to understand that you can't be normal. You can't be average. You can't be like everyone else. And so that's why he says, like, you have to have a lot of passion for what you do. Like, you essentially have to be crazy, because when you're doing something and you realize, like, oh, wow, it's a lot harder than I ever could have imagined, you have to be crazy to keep on going. But you don't want to be normal. You don't want to be average, so you keep going. You keep pushing through. I remember watching this thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he was talking about, in order to build muscle, what has to happen is you're lifting, and let's say you're doing like curls or something. You're lifting, and at a certain point, your muscles are going to get tired. So what happens with most people is they just stop. They're lifting, like, oh, all right, I'm tired, and then they just throw down the weights. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was like, look, at that moment when you're tired, most people quit. But if you want to be a bodybuilder, if you want to build muscle, that's the moment when you start. That's the moment when your muscles are tired and you're like, one more, and you do one more. And that one more is where all of the muscle is built. And so it is normal to quit. It is normal to stop when you feel the pain. It's normal. But you don't want to be normal. You want to be crazy. You want to be the guy who keeps pushing. Pushing is insanely crazy. It's insanely ridiculous. Just do not be normal. So many people, I mean, they completely underestimated what it takes to succeed because they're not prepared for it. They're not prepared for the reality. Keep pushing. When you're demotivated, keep pushing, keep hustling, keep going. It doesn't matter how hard it is, just keep pushing. Listen, guys, if you like this and you want to hear more, make sure you share this podcast. Make sure you share this episode. Make sure you tell people about it. And I will talk to you guys soon.